Hello, I'm Bay Mudd, and I'm back with my trusty Woovebox, as I thought it might be fun to do a bit of a breakdown of the first song that I made entirely on this tiny, powerful little Australian machine. If you just want to hear the track I'm going to be dissecting without all the rambling, it's called Seagull, I was just playing it a second ago, and can be found via the SoundCloud link in the description, as well as in its entirety at the end of this video. But here's another short snippet. Of course, being the first song I made on the Woovebox, there were a lot of happy accidents and a few things I would do differently next time, so I'm hardly an expert. Those of you who already have a Woovebox may enjoy seeing some of the 2.0 firmware tricks in action and may also have pointers on how I could do things differently, while anyone curious about maybe getting one can hear an example of a song made with a mix of sample mangling, internal synths, and the audio buffers and DJ effects. This won't be a comprehensive tutorial as we're going to touch on a huge amount of different features, but hopefully you'll get some ideas to try later or can give me some tips to try too. Basically, I was supposed to have been working on a different musical project entirely, but decided to procrastinate by learning the sampler on the Woovebox instead. Remember kids, it's good to have several things on the go at once, so even when you think you're procrastinating, you've still tricked yourself into being productive. As a testament to how fun and powerful this little box can be, I ended up getting completely sucked in and going down the rabbit hole of making a full, albeit short, track. Quick sidebar on song mode here. Basically, songs on the Woovebox are built by creating fragments, which can hold your different track patterns, as well as different DJ effects parameters, or fade-ins and filter automation, etc. This song uses a total of 15 fragments, but is also pretty short at only about 2.5 minutes. For the sake of trying to stay organized, and seeing as this is a simple song that uses buffers and DJ effects more than complex pattern chaining, let's use the fragments as a guide to go through what we've got here. It all started with this guitar sample, which I played directly into the Woovebox via a mixer so I could learn how sampling worked and to experiment with the different warp modes on kit slices, which dictate things like pitch stretching of the sample, etc. I eventually settled on the length varied master option, or ln.v.m, which shifts the sample's pitch based on the step length. So we'll set that up now. Warp off, scroll to ln.v.m. You notice our sample pitch has changed based on the step length, which is currently 64. If I drop it down, it'll pitch up some more. Scroll that back up to 64. And in this case, the master in ln.v.m means it will scale the pitch based on the overall sample length as well, which can come in handy later. Honestly though, I'm still learning what all the warp modes do and when to apply them. But in this case, the LNVM mode gave me the sonic results I was looking for as I adjusted the various step lengths. So that's where I started. I then added a bit of delay, reverb, and saturation and sequenced it into a simple pattern. As the song progressed, I decided to add a second detuned version of the same sample for extra depth, which gets introduced in Fragment 2. I'll solo that so you can hear it. So that's the same guitar sample, detuned by changing the step length. Fragment 2 also sets up our first instance of buffer recording, as we're recording whatever is played in Fragment 2 to buffer 1 for playback later. So here's Fragment 2. Fragment 3 brings in a simple kick drum from the internal synth and uses the DJ effects mix parameters to fade in that buffer 1 recording, which plays back in a ping-pong mode so it alternates between forward and reverse beneath our tracks. Initially, this was all I had intended to do. I was just trying to learn how to use the audio buffers and DJ effects. Incidentally, if you want to learn more about the audio buffers, as they are a super powerful feature, I'll link to my tutorial on those as well. Fragment 4 is just the kick and playback of buffer 1, while also recording all that into buffer 2 for use later. That means buffer 2 will contain the kick drum as well as our guitar samples that we're playing back via buffer 1, so we can use whichever buffer suits our needs, depending on what else is going on in the song at the time. We're also ramping up some noise and a bit of a filter sweep via the DJ effects. So here's Fragment 4. Fragments 5 to 7 are where the power of the DJ pages and buffers really shine. As you'll notice, there are no track patterns actually set to play in any of these. These fragments rely completely on the DJ effects noise, drone, gator, and buffer playback to create a sort of riser that builds to Fragment 8. So here we go. Fragment 8 introduces more instruments. You'll notice we have more tracks set to play here, including some percussion and a bass track that follows a chord progression that we now have set to fade in as well. This was all a bit tricky because I had to use my ear to figure out what key we were in, as the original guitar riff I had played was now pitched up and down. In the end, F major sounded about right, so we based our chords around that key and did some quick sound design to some internal synth patches for the bass and chord sounds. Here's the chords. I definitely went a bit overboard with the bit crusher on the chords, and my levels in general are a bit hot, but that's a lesson learned for next time. Here's the bass, which follows the chords, and here it all is together. Fragment 9 decreases the buffer playback length, so it's more rhythmic as things fade down to just the chords and percussion in Fragment 10. There's also a filter sweep happening on just the bass track via the behavior option in the context menu, which you can see here. Behavior, filter, and it's full, so that will sweep the bass filter. Let's play those together. You can hear that rhythmic buffer. Boom, 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 boom. Now we're down to just the chord progression, the buffer, and the hi-hats. The only track playing in Fragment 11 is that pseudo hi-hat, as the rest is buffer 1 and a ramp-up of noise from the DJ effects, as well as the high-pass filter, which acts as another sort of riser before Fragment 12 brings it all back together again. Fragment 12 plays for 8 bars and includes buffer 1, which is now set to a length of only 2 steps and ping-pongs between forward and reverse again. The various patterns being played also have a few sequencing tricks like note probability or slight off-grid shifts to make things a bit more interesting too, but we don't need to get into all that because we're more focused on just the fragments themselves. Here are Fragments 11 and 12 together. And then Fragments 13 to 15 basically strip it all back down to just the guitar samples as an outro with some slight filter automation. Slowly fading out here. And one more time. There you have it. A simple composition, but it takes advantage of the power of DJ effects and buffers to keep things moving. The internal synth engine of the Woovebox is incredibly capable too, with lots of editing parameters, but I do find the use of a guitar sample adds a bit of tonal variety, and the version that is pitched down fills it all in nicely. As I mentioned, I went a bit overboard with the bit crusher and distortion, and some of my levels were a bit hot, so I may change how I mix on the device for future tracks. In the end, I thought the pitched up guitar sort of sounded like birds, and I had just finished rereading Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, so the title Seagull seemed fitting. The cover art is a mix of two photos, with the main one being a pile of bird skulls I found when doing a home renovation, which was interesting. As I mentioned off the top, the mastered version of this track is currently only on SoundCloud. Let me know if you have any suggestions for better platforms to share one-off songs, by the way. I'm hoping Seagull will be the beginning of an all Woovebox EP in the near future. Was any of this interesting or helpful? Any Woovebox veterans out there with tips for me? Or maybe you've got questions about specific tricks used here? Let me know in the comments. I have many more ideas on how to integrate my Woovebox with other gear too, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, here's Seagull in its entirety. Thanks for watching.